Are you looking for low-cost therapy? My name's Caitlin Petter, and I can help. I'm an intern psychotherapist, and my rates are as low as $50 an hour. I also work with a sliding scale so that we can work with your cost and meet your needs. I specialize in an existential approach, and I work mostly from somatic modalities, also taking a special interest in spirituality and your connection to yourself and higher powers. You can find me on Psychology Today by looking at my name, KaitlinPetter. You can also book me for a free 15-minute consultation. Just call 604-532-5340. Check out my social media. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Therapreach. You'll see my name come up, Caitlin. I hope that I hear from you soon, and I hope that we can make this better together.
Welcome back to another episode of Stripped by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I'm Steph Sia, aka Kimchi on stage. Again, don't ask me when I'm going to be on stage. I just don't know when that's going to be. Possibly might be next week in April when this or whatever, next week, not next week, next month, in April or May. At this point, I just don't know. You could ask my agent. Please tell her to book me somewhere. Because at this point, I do not know. And I'm getting faced out. But anyways, that's an episode for another time. I'm also a cam model. You could find me exclusively on Streammate. I'm usually there on the weekends under Sia on Cameras, my alias there. I'm also a content creator as well. So you could find my sexy little spicy videos on the internet. And I was also a sugar baby for many years. A decade and a bit ago, which is crazy to even think about. I'm just thinking about that today. But if you are just popping in here and what are you even talking about? This show is all about sex work, specifically the destigmatization of sex work. And I bring different guests onto the show every single week to talk about their specific corner of the industry. And it's very thorough. And I do that on purpose because I really want to be able to illustrate a really accurate portrayal of what sex workers do, what our lives are, what our struggles are, how we are impacted by laws and whatnot. So there's 200 episodes, over 200 episodes now. So it's a big catalog on various topics for specific fetishes, specific niches, content creation, nonprofit organizations that help benefit sex workers, stuff about the law. There's just a lot of varied information out there, and it's all for free because I believe that information should be accessible and free because when I was a sugar baby 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of stuff out there. So my gift to you, fellow listener, I hope you find this enjoyable as well as informative. And this episode is going to be really cool and informative as well because we're going to be talking about sex work as care work specifically. And I'm very excited to announce our guest today and to kind of talk about all the things today. But before we get into all of that, I just want to say a quick hello to all the Patreon subscribers. Hello, who might be watching this video at this moment. Patreon is there in case you want to financially support the show. If you enjoy the show and hey, it is free and you want to kind of quote unquote donate, you're more than welcome to. It's patreon.com/strippedbysia. And there you can find some bonus episodes, lots of different bonus episodes and video exclusive content. You get the episode early before everyone else, the raw, uncut, unedited files for things when I can share them, and kind of a sneak peek on who's coming onto the show, what topics I'll be tackling. And I do take your input as well. So if there's any specific requests, whether or not you are a Patreon subscriber, please get at me because I really want to be able to share as much knowledge as I can. But those who are on the second and top tiers do get a nice little fan recognition shout out. So I'm just going to quickly go and say hello to those folks. We've got Snoo from Germany. We've got Justin Erickson from Vancouver, Washington. We've got Geyser, Selena Money, Moxie Mayhem, Eric Arajo. We've got B. York, who was also on the show before from Seattle. We've got McKenna King, also was on the show before as well from Edmonton. And we've got fellow ally Dan from Red Door Products from Tacoma-ish, Seattle-ish area. there. So hello. Thanks again for supporting the show, peoples. That really means a lot to me. If you do want to know where the money's going, you could go on stripbysia.com because that's exactly where your dollars are going. It's towards the website hosting. And sometimes when I do attend adult industry events, it does help subsidize that cost. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. I probably will not be attending any adult industry events until maybe the second half of the year, but we'll see what the schedule is looking like. People keep asking me if we're going to XBiz Miami, and I would love to, but life is just really busy, and I'm going to be in some other places, which is exciting. But anyways, I'm rambling. We have our guest waiting so patiently, so quiet, probably because she's on mute.
I'm not. I'm just like politely in awe of your entire resume.
Oh my God.
That's all.
I will take it.
I'm just like quietly here, like, holy shit, this woman's lived and I love
her.
Okay.
And I'm about to just like list out your resume here. If you are all listening, you're like, who is this lovely voice that is creeping into my ear right now? It is none other than Fiona Dawson, who is, and let me start listing this out, looking at my other piece of notes on my other laptop. We have crisis counselor, soon to be certified sex educator. We're going to talk about that later too. Porn performer, former escort and sugar baby, also getting her master's degree. Like, excuse me? Like, I'm very impressed and also feel like I need a lot of work to do, but I am legitimately impressed, Fiona, and I'm so excited to have you on the show today. We're going to be talking about a lot of your work, how that counseling work, how care work collides with sex work. We are going to talk about naked therapy as well, which I'm very, very curious to know more about. And we got some really great questions from the audience today, but you all have to just be patient and get through this amazing episode. But Fiona, I don't know if I did an okay job. This is what I found about you online. But I always want to give space for my guests. So please, I'm going to give you the mic. Please tell the audience maybe who you are in your own words and terms, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you did a lovely job. Thank you very, very much. And it's really awesome being here. I've also been a fan for a while as well. So it's like, it's almost surreal for me being like, what? I'm actually like on the pod in that kind of way. So thank you for having me. You covered it pretty well. I kind of found sex work like while I was starting to work as a counselor. And I sort of realized like kind of the collision between the two. And there was a few years when I was sort of dabbling around about what kind of sex work would best fit me and best fit my life and like my boundaries and all of those sort of things. So I just hearing that, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I have like dabbled in almost all of the little ranges of things. But right now, yeah, like the main thing is like being an OnlyFans and porn performer, and I love it so much. Changed my life only for the better. So yeah, yay. That sums it up.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot, Suicide Girl, I think, is also another thing I found online as well. But yeah, again, you have.
Oh my God, you did your homework.
I always have to. I'm just gonna try to online stalk as much as I can. Do my research. I vet everyone that comes on the show.
Very smart. Very, very smart. That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I would love to hear more detail, and I'm sure the audience is also very curious in terms of like, yeah, your humble beginnings in sex work, because you mentioned while you were doing your counseling work, so I'd imagine some kind of schooling, perhaps a situation like that, and intentionally fell into sex work. Yeah, feel free to take us wherever your beginning is.
Thank you. I mean, oh, good Lord. I mean, I guess we're going to have to go like way back if we're really going to break this down. Like, good Lord. I grew up in a very suburban, very sheltered environment. And I was really, oh my God, I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud, but I was really dead set on being a Shakespearean actor. That was the original goal.
That is so specific.
And like, it's just so funny. I went to like a very fancy, prestigious theater school. That was my first degree. Good Lord. It was just an unbelievable amount of privilege to be a part of this like very elite cult, essentially, of like 20 other people competing to be like classical actors.
Wow.
So yeah, that was me 10 years ago, back in the day. Good times. But I realized what I was looking for while doing that like super snooty program. And I shouldn't shit on it too hard because I have people who are still in theater and like it's a great industry. But I realized what I was interested in was intimacy and connection.
Mm-hmm.
And you're never going to meet more horny people than just like early 20s and like 18-year-old theater kids. Like
Yes.
it's shocking. And it was very like it was like an episode of Glee plus like everyone's just like dry humping each other. Like it's such a mess to say the least. So like yeah, that's kind of where I started. But I was originally going down that path of just like wanting to be an actor and performer. I started auditioning and then I just sort of realized like this actually isn't me. I think I liked the parts that like the arts have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And I also noticed that like a lot of the roles that I was getting or cast as was like stripper or like escort or like anything like that. And I was often just like portraying these roles anyway for like a very conservative white audience of people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's very wild how much my life has changed. And so, yeah, I was doing that. And then I came across the opportunity and I was sort of looking for like other side hustles, other things that I'd be interested in. Because for a long time, that was really like all I was really in it. It was just all the things that I had in my life. So I found being a birth worker. And so I was a doula for a few years.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So my job was anytime anybody went into labor who hired me, I would meet them at the hospital or meet them at their house and just coach them and support them through labor. And then I started doing that with abortion work as well and supporting people through abortions, whether they were like taking the pill and going home or like having the procedure. And I would be like their counsel essentially, or their person with them if they didn't have anyone else to come, or they just wanted like an unbiased person to support them and have their back.
Wow.
Yeah. And honestly, once I discovered that work, theater was gone. I was like, okay, now I'm finding like a way to really connect with people in really vulnerable ways. And I liked helping people in, it wasn't always a crisis, but it was always like a high intensity situation usually, like especially for someone having a kid.
Yeah.
Like, good Lord.
That's
So
huge.
yeah. So I did that for a long time. And then I realized, okay, I want to get into crisis counseling. So I got a diploma in that sort of while I was doing the doula work. Really loved the work that I did in shelters for a very long time. And it especially kind of felt like, I think it especially felt like a responsibility I had because I had such a privileged background and the fact that I was like working in theater for so long, to like really help people in like a vulnerable state felt, like I was giving back in a way that was actually useful and not me just like patting myself on the shoulder, being like, you're an ally. Like I was like, no, I'm like in the trenches, like really trying to hands-on help people in that way.
Right.
Yeah. So I did shelter work up until the pandemic. And then one really bored day during lockdown, my friend was talking about a campsite that she was on. She was on My Girlfriend. And then I was like, let's see what this is. And pretty much I was bored and horny. And I realized very quickly, yeah, right? It's like the perfect combo for this kind of work. But I realized what I liked about it was combining my love for performance with my theater background with crisis care, or like even just being empathetic and supportive of people. And so that day in 2020 kind of changed my life. And then from there, while I've been going through school and while planning to be a sex therapist because I finally landed on what fucking career I want to have.
Yay. It's a journey.
Yay. Thanks. I did it. So proud. um, but yeah, like I guess it's been 4 years now, just sort of dabbling in different avenues of sex work and learning a lot from it, meeting people that I've never would normally meet in my normal little bubble. Um, and then once I got more involved with the sex work community and I started meeting other workers, I quickly realized like, oh, these are my people. Like these are really fascinating, kind, unique people that are no bullshit and that are so resilient and so badass. And
Yes.
yeah, I kind of never looked back. And now I'm just sort of like dedicated to this community for life, I feel like. So here we are.
Yay. Oh, I love to hear that. And that's such an interesting entry like in your history and
Right?
everything. Well, you know what? If you want to think about it this way, you're acting in a different kind of way now. Like it's still acting
I mean,
in a
honestly,
way.
oh, 100%. And like, I'm putting that BFA to good use. And also, like, most actors don't make shit. So the fact that, like, I got to, like, get a steady income from doing this kind of thing worked out perfect for me.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, you know, it's kind of like cool to see things coming full circle in a different kind of way. Cause like even myself, like I majored in criminology and minored in gender studies. And I really feel that has really come full circle, especially like when I go like guest lecture at my alma mater. I'm just like, how did I get here? And how did this happen? Because I was like, I'm not
That
using
is
my degree.
so cool.
Yeah, but it's wild. It's wild, and yeah. If anyone wants to listen to that, you can listen to the bonus episodes like way back in season 1.
Yo, straight up. I mean, I didn't know that. And the fact that like you're now advocating for the decriminalization of an industry with your criminology degree. That's so cool
It's
and
crazy.
very fascinating.
Yeah,
I love it.
Wild.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I mean, like, yeah,
So dope.
you are so well equipped. I mean, you have so many talents. Just it's been like what 16 minutes that we've been talking, and I've already learned so much about you. And I'm sure we are gonna dive into some things. Yeah, like the theme for today's episode. And you sent this earlier with your pitch, which I loved. Sex work is care work. Ah,
Mm-hmm.
I love that so
Right?
much. It is so freaking true. And if you want to maybe define that for the audience, because I know that we know what that means, but in your words and opinions, like what do you mean? What is care work?
Yeah, absolutely. I came up, or I didn't come up with the term. The term was coined a few years ago, and I learned about it. It's coined by an Indigenous social worker. I will find out her name and get back to you. But when I was doing my crisis counseling degree, that degree was in assaulted women, children counseling, assaulted women and children's counseling way back. And the word care work was really used as an umbrella term for anybody that is supporting somebody in a vulnerable state as their profession. So usually that's nurses, that's social workers, that's therapists, all of those sorts of things. But what I've really realized through this kind of work is just how the exact same skills are really used in sex work. And sometimes it's not as obvious. And of course, there are times where, like, the quote unquote cliche story happens where a dude's just looking to get off and, like, get entertained and move on with his life. And, like, whatever, there's nothing wrong with that. But the amount of vulnerability it takes for a lot of people to, let's say, escorting, for example, to hire an escort, for a lot of people, that takes a lot of vulnerability.
It does.
And it's the sex worker's right. And of course, the priority for a sex worker should be their own safety, but it's also a sex worker's job to make sure that their client is feeling safe, is feeling supported, isn't feeling judged, isn't feeling mocked or in any kind of way, and giving that person usually an experience that they've never had before. So I definitely discovered that when I briefly did escorting, but in all kinds of sex work, And now that my brand is like very on the nose about that, but and even before I kind of realized what my like quote unquote brand was, which was being really open on the fact that I am a counselor and that I can support people. But when I first started camming, I was just new to it. I didn't really know what I wanted. And I was using like kind of a different persona, you know? I just was like trying kind of a new personality and being a bit more performative. And even then, I got pretty vulnerable stories out of people without even asking or seeking for it or anything in any way. And I think most people, even like on OnlyFans, can relate to that. That, yeah, some people just want to like sext and get off or send a dick pic or whatever, but like you often get people kind of just sharing their stories, whether it's about their sex life or their personal life or anything in between.
Oh, definitely. Like even my time as like a sugar baby, oh my gosh, like the amount of like dumping that my clients like
Right.
used to do was a lot. Like emotional dumping, whatever it's like with his wife, work, their career, whatever it is. Like and you probably hear this a lot too, and I'm sure a lot of listeners probably hear this as well too, but you know, sex workers are not your therapist. Uh,
Yep.
and we sometimes get treated as such. I will repeat, sex workers are not your therapist, because I know there's a lot of clients that listen to this show as well. So
Very smart. Yeah.
yes.
Good reminder. God damn. Mhm.
But yes, as you mentioned, like it can be very vulnerable space for many people, and people seek out sex workers for so many different reasons, not just for sex. Like yes, sex is you know maybe top of the list for some, but you know there can be companionship, there can be you know loneliness or whatever, or any reason, and these really put sex workers in that care position as you were mentioning.
Mhm. Absolutely. And even if a client is looking for just quote unquote sex, I I mean, now I'm putting the counselor hat on, but there's always a reason why people want to have sex. Is it because they're looking to have less stress in their life and they're looking for a release? Are they looking to feel really good about themselves? Are they looking for closeness and connection, even if it's just like in like rough play? So even if someone's just like, yeah, I'm just looking to get off, there's usually more of a story there as well. And it doesn't always need to be overanalyzed the way that I like to, but it's there very
We
much.
like to go there too, so.
Perfect. Great.
But what I found most interesting too, you know, when your like submission came in for a pitch, I was so intrigued already because you were really interested in exploring the correlation between like sex work and care work. Do you mind going into that a little bit?
Yeah. I Well, when I really noticed it firsthand was that I was briefly an escort for Sensual Solutions in BC. Do you know them at all?
No, I actually don't. This is new to me.
Oh, cool. Okay, I will they Vice actually did a whole piece on them that's like very, very famous.
Oh.
But they're specifically an escort agency for people with physical disabilities.
Oh, cool. That's
Um,
awesome.
right?
Hells yeah.
Yeah, and it was honestly, it was for me, it was delightful. Of course, I'm sure every escort has like a different experience with agencies and stuff, so like I'm not going to like speak on behalf of everybody, but for me I had a really great experience with Trish who runs it. And um most of well all of my clients though were people with like severe physical disabilities that were not capable of having like quote unquote traditional sex or having like intercourse in that kind of way. So that was like my first realization of just how apparent the correlation between sex work and care work is.
Yeah.
And I left with really beautiful experiences and also just realizing like, oh yeah, that person's day was made and that person felt like a closeness they haven't felt before.
Mhm.
And yeah, I doubt every escort leaves and goes like, what an honor. But like it really did feel I did feel like very humbled that I got to be there for that and that I got to play a part in that. Um, so that's sort of when I first noticed it. But then every stripper I know has a story about like a very lonely person coming into the club looking for support.
Mhm.
And again, sex workers are not therapists. I can't stress that enough. But, and I think it also comes from the fact that people are afraid to actually go to a therapist and are like, well, I'll just rely on like this beautiful person who wants to talk to me. That is very fair. Yeah, but regardless, I just think everybody has a story of someone being very vulnerable with them, whether or not they were okay with that or not, if that was in their boundaries. And it's never okay if it's not in a sex worker's boundaries, to be clear. And yeah, the emotional dumping can be real.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But because of my background and because I am a counselor, I kind of realized like, oh, this is actually my favorite part of this kind of work. And especially with sex work getting such a rap of being like quote unquote dirty, I actually find it a very like wholesome part of this work when both parties are comfortable with it, and to like really just hear somebody out and what's going on with their life.
No.
So yeah, I kind of just made it like my whole brand.
I love that. No, and so great. And like you were saying that you were a fan of this show. I was also following you. I am following you and have been following you for like a long time as well. Also love your content.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is a really interesting place to be in this industry, and can be very rewarding. And even like going to back to what she said, been working with what's called sensual solutions. I'm gonna have to Google this later.
Yeah, that's that.
That's really cool. Like I had a guest on not too long ago, maybe like 5 episodes back, talking with Clover, who is a disabled person, and who specifically her clients, she caters to disabled folk, but also like talking about like how amazing some of those experiences are, to, as you said, almost like have the honor of doing this service for them. And then like on the flip side, another sex worker that I know from, this is maybe in season 2, Raphael, who has oh my gosh, I can't remember, but it's a very physical disability as well. Just talking about how disabled folks are not even seen as sexual beings, are not really seen as like humans with needs and stuff like that, and just putting like diverse abilities aside, like people are human at the end of the day, and they want, human touch. They want a connection. They want to be heard. Like they want to be helped, I guess, is like helped or supported, maybe is a better word.
Yeah.
They want to have the comfort of that, having that support. So I think going back to a potential correlation between like sex workers and care workers, like we want to support people. That's kind of part of our jobs. Is it not?
100%. Absolutely. I think, I don't know, there's not a better feeling for me of when I like, if I'm say like I'm even chatting with someone on OnlyFans and just knowing like, oh yeah, that person actually like really had a good time in that kind of way. And to be fair, like I know that like rep cam girls who've been doing it for years and stuff, like of course we're not always walking around in our jobs that are being like, wow, we're really fulfilled. Like
Yeah.
I'm not naive. I know that's like how the world works, but that's also the same with social workers and the same with nurses. They're not every minute of every day going like, God, I'm helping the world in that kind of way. It's like,
Yeah.
it's still work.
Yes.
By all means. Like 100%. But I think I still have that like gratitude, I suppose, for it at the end of the day, which I'm really grateful for that I still have that after all this time.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're not jaded.
Yeah.
That's so refreshing, Fiona.
I know, right?
Oh my God.
Give it like 2 more years and I'll be like, oh boy. But
like I'll check it on with you like next week. You're like, I'm over this.
like, no, fuck this. This is hell. But I heard your podcast for the first time when I was moving to Vancouver, and I was interested in like the Vancouver sex worker scene, and you had Nikki Nine Doors on.
She's great. I love that episode, the therapy episode.
It's a great episode, man. It was so good. but yeah, like she also talked a lot about the research that she's done and the discovery that she had about like safety in our own bodies and how that applies to both her and like her clients when she's dancing in that kind of way. So it's interesting that like I think this job tends to appeal to people who are also like thinking of other careers or other callings of supporting other people too.
Mm-hmm. And there's like a lot of I guess similar skills that all those professions in care work, like counselors, psychiatrists, therapists, they have in common with sex work. I mean, we've already probably like named a little bit of it, but maybe we can kind of dive into that too, because yeah, there's a lot of commonalities for sure. Yeah, Fiona, you're like nodding your head.
Oh yeah. 100%. What came to mind first thing was judgment about other people's bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, because I mean, I still, and we all fucking still struggle with just our bodies not being worthy enough or desirable enough, or if anything is unique about our bodies, that means it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's every sex worker's job to make somebody feel desired.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even if it's like in a cuckold fantasy or in a dom situation, like there's still that trust there about we're doing this in this kind of play and this sort of role for a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that also just goes back to like the doula work that I did and the like counseling
Yeah.
that I did, is that everybody feels so unworthy of like intimacy and lust and fun. And I
Mm-hmm.
fucking love that our job is to like
Do all
make
those
people feel
things.
hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And also feel good.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Right?
to feel fucking good. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Feel good physically, feel good mentally as well. Like, I mean, I feel like that is a major point of why people seek sex workers, because they want to feel good, they want to have a good time, they want to, escape from this world we live in for an hour or maybe less. Who knows?
Or 5 minutes
Or
or
5
so.
minutes.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, some escapism in there, or just like not even just this life, but maybe their specific scenarios in their life, escaping stressors and whatnot. There's so many situations that we could probably name here, but it would probably take the entire episode. Um, but I mean, I think there's an interesting point. In speaking about like similarities and differences, but like, what about like similarities and differences with sex workers and care workers and how they're treated by society? I think this is an
Oof.
interesting piece.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, the thing that's at least the one thing that they all have in common, let's say for example a social worker and a sex worker, um they're both like social workers are so underpaid, it's ridiculous,
Mm-hmm.
for the amount of emotional endurance they do. And some sex workers make mad money, most of us don't. I feel like that's like a really common misconception with the field, is that like the moment you become an escort or the moment you become a dom or whatever, you're just going to get like mad rich.
Oh my
And
gosh.
right, like that's like the
uh,
one, yeah. Or if people's debating like, well, it's like horrible but at least they're like wealthy, I'm like, that's not how it
says
fucking works.
who?
It's just
Like,
not.
yeah, it's such there's such a stereotype with that. With like sex workers be like, oh my god, you must be loaded. You can like afford this car, you can afford this apartment, you can go on all these lavish trips and eat out all these places. Maybe that is a truth for some sex workers, but I feel like the majority of sex workers, including myself, are pretty average. Like pretty average.
100%. Oh yeah, I'm thinking of like terrible misleading documentaries about sex workers, like like Hot Girls
Mm.
Wanted and all of those
Yes,
kinds of ones.
sensationalism,
And
100%.
yeah, and just like fear mongering. But the
Mhm.
narrative is always like, this young woman wants to get into porn and now she's super rich, but she's dead inside.
Yeah, it's
And
always that.
like from my right, yeah, exactly. from my experience, it's usually like the opposite, where somebody like gets into porn and like enjoys themselves and
Right?
doesn't make a ton of money, but they like their work. And you're like, oh, okay.
They're
That
happy.
works out
They're
well.
getting a paycheck.
Yeah,
Like
they're like, oh yeah, this worked for what I was looking for in my life. Cool. Why not?
totally.
So yeah, that's like a big thing between like social workers and other kinds of sex workers. Of course, and nurses, like all of these professions that society loves praising, but not actually rewarding with money or comfort, but just being like, God, you're so brave for being a teacher or anything like that. But they all have shit salaries and shit benefits and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So in that way, I see a similarity.
Yeah.
But what differs is that everybody praises teachers, everybody praises nurses, everybody praises social workers. Nobody is like, wow, look at like the true moral high ground of a stripper or something like that. That just, it's not a societal belief. And I'm happy and relieved to see that, like, of course there's dick teachers and there are dick strippers, but I've mostly just met really incredible, caring people through this time and through this industry. But yeah, society does not
No.
view
It's
the
such
same.
like a weird like double standard almost. Like again, they're morally recognized, morally praised. Because I guess they're quote unquote doing good work, you know?
Yeah.
Public health care, the public school system or whatever, like schools in general, you're educating our kids, doing all this essential kind of work. But can't we also argue that sex work is also very essential as well? Like people have needs.
Yeah.
People need
People have
sorry, go ahead.
no, that people have needs, people have desires and connections, and it seems like a niche thing of like, not everybody hires an escort, sure, but like, how many people watch porn and even just use it for their sex education or for their like coming of age pivotal moments in their lives? It's a really like massive thing that impacts almost everybody. But no, we're not going to get the moral high ground and the praise for that versus like a social worker in that kind of way.
Right. And there's like lots of things to blame for that. I mean, sex work is always like rooted in so many negative stereotypes and as you mentioned, like fear mongering and like look what happened to her now, and you get the one sex worker or like whatever, a handful of sex workers that like regretted their decision, and they really kind of lean on that emotional kind of narrative for like a lot of these documentaries and stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is
Mhm.
disappointing to hear.
It is a reality that some people enter this industry and they get exploited, they feel abused, they feel ripped off. That is the same with every other industry as well.
Yes.
Like I have been exploited and abused in many of the other jobs that I've done. So again, it's just the holding on to the fact that some people are traumatized from this experience, which of course is terrible,
Yes.
but
Can't ignore that.
name a job where people can't be traumatized, or name a job where people haven't been taken advantage of. Like, of course.
Totally. Like I reflect on my time working in corporate and just the amount of misogyny and like toxicity and verbal abuse that I endured at those jobs was far worse than, I don't know, some of the work that I've done with clients. Like at least I can like set my
Right.
boundaries, set the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely. And again, I can't stress this enough. The most privileged background I have working in theater, but like theater people can like theater cis men in particular, like there are countless stories of abuse that happened in that industry. In like, I mean, we saw it through the Me Too movement and everything, of course, through the arts. But like, again, it's still rewarded as this like high culture, beautiful thing. And I'm like, it's a lot of sleazebags and a lot of people that say you should be thankful for being here. And that's it. And we're going to still treat you like garbage and pay you shit. Like, that's the reality of it. And I think a lot of other industries would, a lot of people listening, I'm sure, are like, oh, I've experienced that in my line of work.
Oh, yes. I'm sure a lot of people are nodding. Yes.
Thoughtful nod.
Yes.
Yes.
Consensus is yes, we have probably experienced something like this. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. And just like even that statement of like, you should be thankful that you're here. You should be thankful that you have this opportunity. And then what, suffer and become
Yeah,
depressed forever? it's
exactly.
it's so
Hmm.
backwards.
And what a cyclical process that sometimes when people are in those industries or in those toxic work environments that they think they're feeling that they're doing something wrong for suffering or for becoming anxious or for becoming fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But yeah, people get taken advantage of. It's true.
Yeah, I think like obviously like with stereotypes and how the media portrays us, and again, I just want to stress that yes, this absolutely does happen. Not negating that it does not happen, but like always have
Absolutely.
that that situation, that narrative that people or society puts out that like we are always the one being taken advantage of, we are always the ones being exploited and trafficked, and all these negative things. And yes, it does happen, but that's not the only truth that's out there.
The only truth is a really good way to put it.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just connected to like society's, oh God, we could talk about this for hours, but society's fear of sex and sex shaming in general.
Yeah.
You know, like a sex educator, like let's say a sex educator that goes into schools, um, still is surrounded by tons of controversy, even though that is like an official care worker job. It
Yes.
just is. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll tell
mhm.
you some things because yes, I do like a portion of my vanilla work is in sex education as we've talked off the air.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
yes, having meetings with my educator, not my educators, but the team of educators that I work with, and just listening to the abuses, especially with the climate right now, with parents and parents' rights movements, and being very vocal about what they want their children to be exposed to, especially when it comes to topics like gender identity and gender nonconforming folks. Like that has been a very contentious topic this school year, and it's been really, really. I just feel awful. I just read these emails from parents that are coming in, and it's the same kind of rhetoric for those who are like porn is bad and blah blah blah. Like it's the same,
Yep.
it's the same echoing statement, and from the same people, from the same vein. you know
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of
Yep.
similarities there, and it's just like terrible to hear that these educators are going through this and they're not getting any support from the schools. I could go off on
Brutal.
this. Yeah,
I
it's
I
terrible.
don't blame you. Yeah. Most of my work, and we've talked about this like off recording as well, but like most of my sex education work has been with adults.
Hmm.
And I've worked with kids before, but like with this climate right now and with fear of sex just being such a pivotal part of our society and scapegoating trans people and scapegoating anyone who's like identifying themselves openly,
Yeah.
it's I can't imagine what it must be like reading those emails. My
Yeah.
heart goes out to you.
It's
Holy fuck.
it's a lot. I will tell you more off air because now we're just going on a tangent. But like I could definitely go off on
Yeah.
this for sure. But like,
Yeah.
but back to sex and back to you and
And
therapy.
how wonderful it is.
I mean, Fiona,
Oh
I'm
my
super curious to hear about your naked therapy and what that entails. I know you wrote me about this, and I'm really excited to just learn more
God.
about it. So please tell the audience what this thing naked therapy is that you offer.
It's become my favorite thing I've done in sex work, hands down. I'm really, really proud of it. And some of the connections that I've had with people have just really warmed my heart. So, again, because I came out and talked about like my counseling background and kind of colliding my like sex worker life and my vanilla life, um, I just sort of made my OnlyFans like entirely based on sex education, even though it is like me being slutty in all of
Love
the
it.
regards. Yeah, so like once a week I just like ramble naked about something to do with sex education and just start a conversation about it. Um, and then subscribers as well can also have a 40-minute Zoom call with me. And I'm naked. They can be naked too if they wish, but there's no pressure. And I used to like offer like happy endings, quote unquote, where we both have some fun, but I actually realized it's more intimate if we're just hanging out, if it's just you and me naked and we're going to have some intimate time together.
Love that.
And also, people are welcome to bring up any kind of thing that they have on their mind regarding their sexuality, regarding their sex life, anything like that.
So cool.
Thanks. Yeah. And I always say, like, I'm not a registered therapist yet. I will be in a couple of years. So,
Yay.
like, I'm not replacing like professional therapy by any means, but I have a good knowledge and a good background. And I know that I can offer like unjudgmental support and just be nothing but curious for people who are wanting more info about sexuality in any way, or wanting affirmation, or just wanting some guidance about their sex life or lack thereof. And yeah, I really, really love it. It makes me very happy when people sign up for it.
Yay.
And yeah. And also all the money's going toward like my master's program. So
Hells yeah.
they also just leave being like, yeah, love to girl out too and hang out with me.
I have so many questions. Like, that's such a cool concept. I'm wondering, Fiona, like, how did you even come up with that offering? So unique.
Ooh, how did I come up with that? I think it just started from like doing one-on-one cam shows and then knowing me and knowing I'm also just like such a like doe-eyed white girl that I think people are like, oh, what a naive person I can talk to and lean on. And I like really and I really had like girlfriend experience vibes. I do have girlfriend experience vibes. So I just kind of noticed that my cam shows with the intent of like putting on a show and like getting really hot and heavy sort of just turned into two people connecting online. And then I think it just sort of evolved from there. And I ran it by a few friends and they both said it was a great idea, and kind of just dipped my toe in with a few regulars who were down to sort of try it out. And now I'm like, oh, this is
It.
the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel really, yeah, I genuinely feel pretty honored when I'm done that I'm like, oh, this is someone who like really shared with me something intimate about their body and are looking to see if they're normal or if they're enough.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually are. It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. I just really love that idea of like you marrying all of your interests and your work and your education all into like one ball. And like people are just eating it up. And I really respect that, because it can take a long time for you to realize or try to come up with a concept that is really working for you and really serves you in sex work. Like, I love it when the worlds collide. Like, must be very rewarding.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think also when I started OnlyFans, it was just clear that like I wasn't really offering anything different or unique than so many of the other beautiful people that are on the platform. It's a very oversaturated market, and I just didn't feel like I was doing anything that I was particularly stoked about. And wasn't anything that like interesting or different. And sort of when I found that collision, it just clicked of like, oh, this is sick. I'm offering you something like a little bit unique, but kind of as you said, like combining everything that I love. So I feel grateful for that.
I think that's cool because, like, you know, it can be so hard to, like, say, finding your niche and just trying to, again, find something that works like together. Like, for example, like when I'm streaming and stuff too, I'll do like cooking streams because I love anything to do with food, and like trying to do like that naked and just like take requests and stuff like that to me is like super fun and totally like in my own brand as well, because everyone knows I'm a food nerd. So like it just like makes sense. And it feels like
That's
not work.
awesome.
Is it great?
Yes, exactly. Oh, that warms my heart. First off, that's fucking awesome. But yeah, I think also like when you find your niche in that, it doesn't feel as hard,
Mhm.
and maintaining a kind of persona that I had at the beginning was getting exhausting.
It
Like I was
does
just
get
sort of like,
exhausting.
okay, we get it. But now that I can just like hang out and ramble about sex, which is what I normally do in my day-to-day life anyway, then I'm like, sick. Okay. Found my calling.
I love that. And it's just like so what was I gonna say? Like it's yeah, as I said, rewarding was one thing, but also it's really cool that you're able to educate your audience as well, and they're receptive to it. Or hopefully they are receptive to it.
What if I was like, no, everyone hates it. Everyone hates it. No, it's cool. Honestly, I've also noticed that my subscribers, since I sort of changed this or branded this, are like also more my people because
Yeah.
they tuned in for a specific reason. And again, you can find porn anywhere. So like
Mhm.
you come to me for a specific sort of niche, and everybody's just really curious about that, and talking to them about it is awesome. Plus I can be way more upfront with my boundaries and just be like, hey, if you want to talk to me about this, sign up for naked therapy and that kind of thing. So
Right.
it works out.
Like, what was the response like when you first rolled out with naked therapy, and like versus like what it's like now?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm really lucky that I get to say overall super positive.
Yay.
Um, yeah, it worked out well. Again, I felt like I was going from just being like another alt girl on the internet to like something that had a bit more of a taste to it.
Mhm.
I was really nervous because I decided when I was combining all of these things to come out to some like civilians in my life and
Mm.
just to be like, yeah, you can follow me and you can know like what I'm doing, because I also was just stoked on the idea and I wanted my friends and like people in my life to see. So I think that was the scariest part to me. But my friends were all just like, oh, this is dope. This is what she's been up to this whole time. Sick. So there was definitely some vulnerability there. But really relieved that it just sort of clicked in that kind of way.
Ah, I love that for you. You know, that's so freaking cool. We're going to definitely plug all your links at the end of the show, and people can just wait till the end of the episode in terms of like how we can sign up for naked therapy. But Fiona, I think it might be time for some Q&A for you.
Let's
Yes.
do it. Hell yeah.
We've got some great questions from Instagram this time. So, the first question is, what's a corner of the market for clients that needs to be tapped into but hard to reach?
That is such a good question. I think a corner of the market that is hard to reach are the people that aren't normally in the like quote unquote porn world. Like who like regularly go on Pornhub and have maybe like, I know a lot of clients that have like Instagram accounts that they don't follow, they don't post anything themselves, but it's just for them to like follow adult content creators, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um and I usually get my clients from people who are like in the porn world and then see me and then find it like curious, or that are curious about what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are afraid of sex
Yes.
that that come from it with a place of shame.
Mm.
And I think they would probably benefit from our kind of work the most, honestly.
Yeah.
Because when you hang out with sex workers and when you get to know them, you usually just kind of have a sense of affirmation and that you see like your desires are okay. Um, but the people that are just so afraid of sex with them themselves probably need our work the most, and obviously pretty hard to reach out to someone when they're not asking for it. So it's
Yeah.
tricky.
No, that's a great point to make. Like, if I can add, I think like a corner would be for people that have been repressed for sex, whether it's due to their religion, whether it's due to how they've been brought up and they've been told a certain way that sex is bad, or shameful, as you mentioned. Like, I think we need to support those people better and open up their eyes or broaden their horizons and maybe do a little bit of rewiring or unlearning, because a lot of that stuff can actually be quite toxic. Yeah, can that could be really hard. Like, if I can also be vulnerable right now, like my husband grew up in a Muslim country, and he has like a lot of like, I guess, Muslim values instilled in him. He's not Muslim, but like a lot of that is really deeply ingrained into him, and like the sex is bad kind of framework still comes out. And even though I'm very open about sex and just an open book in general, it can be difficult to navigate. So I know that he's not the only one out there that might be
Oh,
struggling with it,
100%.
right? So thank you, Galigo Smash, for that lovely question. Like, really deep. I just love my audience.
You have a
You guys are
lovely
great.
audience. You really do.
That's great.
And if I can touch on that for what you shared,
Sure.
it's yeah, I mean, it's just also really interesting to me of your husband, I'm sure, is very supportive of all the work that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know so many people that are pro sex work and that have an open mind and are down for people to live their lives in any way they want. But because they grew up in a place of shame, that's still internalized in them.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like you understand in your mind, but not in your body yet,
Yeah.
that it's okay to play and to enjoy yourself. And you can do that safely, and that's all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if only we could tap into that market, but people again can't receive help unless they ask for it, unless they reach out first. So
Yeah.
it's tricky.
They want to be able to they need to be able to help themselves first, in order to open those doors, if you will. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. Okay. Shall we try to tackle the rest of the questions?
Let's do it.
All right. So the next question here is, what makes sex work specifically therapeutic?
Connection and intimacy. We're gonna fully summarize it. All sex work involves connection and intimacy. Again, even like the roughest, kinkiest shit, it's still connection and intimacy to me. So I think that's it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think so too. I was going to say connection as well. There has to be some kind of connection, or even some kind of attraction. But I almost think that connection is actually more powerful than attraction, depending on how you're defining attraction as well. So
True.
yeah, like it doesn't always
Yeah.
need to be a physical kind of thing, and not just like a looks thing, but also people can be attracted to you for many different reasons, whether it's your personality, whether it's something about you. Um, yeah, I think that might be my final answer.
Yeah. That's a good final answer.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Oh yeah.
In relation to this other person was asking, what role does sexual fantasy of the client have in interactions, if any?
Is that like in terms of my work with naked therapy, or just in general with sex work, or
However you receive the question, whether it's within naked therapy, whether it's just sex work in general, you can answer both, like whatever you feel like.
oh, okay. I feel like if I was a client of mine, it's just nice to hang out with a girl who I assume they find cute, and to just hear and to just be really listened to. And I think for a lot of people, especially single people or people who aren't in happy relationships, fantasize about that kind of thing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like since you're a little kid, of just being like, oh, I hope I can have like, like tough day at the office, like the typical fantasies in that kind of way, very like innocent fantasies. Um, but in general, like sex work is to me like so much about it is fulfilling fantasy. It's trying
Totally.
things you've never tried before. It's feeling like you're a fucking king, that you're like having sex with beautiful people. So like, yeah, fantasy's just like never not a part of it to me.
Yeah, me too. Like I feel like fantasy, especially on the client side, can definitely be a huge driver for everything, for sex work in
Right?
general. It's that desire, that the willingness and wantingness to have that fantasy come true, and that's kind of why you seek out sex workers, to make that fantasy a reality. And on the creator side, I love catering to people's fantasies as long as it's within my boundaries. I think it's like, yeah, it's so much fun. It gives you the opportunity to really be creative. And like, I guess it has an acting element part of it, and opens my eyes to a lot of things that, I never thought could be fetishized or sexualized in a way. But those are also like a lot of my clients. I cater to a lot of different fetishes. So yeah, like I'm specifically speaking to that, but I think
Hell
plays a
yeah.
main role, like a big role for sure.
100%. Customs in general aren't really my thing. Like I just don't have the time for them.
Yeah.
But
Hear you.
right. Like I've done them and they were fun, but I'm like, oh, right now with my life, like fuck, I can't do it. But I have a few friends though that are just like the queens of customs, and it's so much fun hanging out with them and being like, okay, we have to make like a 10-minute short film, and like there's just so much like creativity involved in that kind of way. And it's really cool just hearing like, huh, that's what you found hot. All right, let's do it. We'll act this out for you. So
Yeah. It's great though. I'm here for it.
yeah, 100%.
The last one here, Fiona, is why are we as human beings so intrigued by nudity?
I mean, the human body, this is so hippy dippy, but like the human body is very beautiful.
I was gonna say the
It
same
just
thing.
is.
Yes.
Right? It just is. It's so beautiful and fascinating. And I think it's that simplicity, plus we're in a society that is telling us to cover ourselves up all the time.
Yes.
And that just makes us want it even more.
Yes, that it's that
Right?
tabooness, the
Yep.
forbidden. You're not supposed to see, like, these are private parts. It's supposed to be covered. Like, no,
Yep.
not
And that
supposed to.
just makes
So
us want it even more.
yeah,
Hmm.
I also agree. Um, and yeah, I also share the same sentiment that like human bodies are beautiful as well, and I like looking at them too. So I think we all
Hell
do.
yeah.
Thank you for the questions. I think that came from Daniel, I believe. I'm not going to say the whole handle, but like Daniel from Instagram. Thank you so much for those questions. Fiona, before I let you go, where can we all find you, and how can we sign up for naked therapy?
Hell yeah. You can find me on Instagram at smut therapy, SMUT_therapy. And there's a Linktree link in my bio where you can sign up for naked therapy. And also, if you subscribe to my OnlyFans from there, you get a discount and you get to hang out with me and watch my sex ed videos and my other hot videos. So
Woo.
you can go from there. Mm-hmm.
Yay! Obviously, those links are in the show notes below. If you haven't clicked already, they're down there. Be sure to give Fiona a follow, sign up for her naked therapy, sign up for her OnlyFans, sign up for all the things, and support. We like to support here. And for everyone else listening at home, it's new episodes every single Sunday, dropping at midnight Pacific Standard Time. If you do want to get in touch with me, you can probably find me at X. I'm usually quite active on there under Stripped by Sia. Um, I'm also kind of active on Instagram as well, which is Stripped by Sia Podcast. And if you do want to pitch yourself to be on the show, I'm really loving all the really cool submissions that are coming in. It's strippedbysia.com, and just fill in the contact form there with your pitch, your idea, episode topics. We'll be gearing up for season 7 very soon. So trying to plan that season out very shortly. So please get in touch. Like I'm very curious to hear. There's so many topics I could obviously do, but yes, you can get in contact that way. Patreon.com/strippedbysia is where you can, again, financially support the show. Feel free to subscribe for as low as $4. And last but not least, if you do enjoy this content, this free content, please rate and review the show. Yes, I will ask for ratings because that's how people discover the show. It helps out a lot, right? You can do that on Spotify. You can do that on Apple. I do read all the reviews as well, and maybe I'll even read it on air as well. But yeah, that's all the homework I'm asking for you all to do. Other than that, it's gonna be another new episode next Sunday. Stay tuned. It's gonna be a great one, as this episode was as well. Fiona, you're an awesome guest. Like, thank you so much for sharing this perspective on the show, and so excited that we can finally connect. I mean, still virtually, but still awesome. Like, big fan. This makes me very happy. I'm glad we're able to do this. Thank you.
Me too. Oh, thank you. I've seriously been a fan for a while, and thanks just for all the work that you do with decriminalization, and congrats on 7 seasons. That's unbelievable. It's so dope.
It's wild. Cheers to 7 more.
Oh, yeah, love it.
Thank you again, everyone. Tune in next week for another episode. Okay, take it easy. Peace. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabrin.